Hello everybody and welcome to this Fotospeed video with myself, Sam Gregory, and Mr. Timothy Jones.
As always, I'm here.
As always, exactly. Who's this guy? Why am I talking to you? Well, I've done a few Fotospeed things in the past, and finally Tim and I, we're back together.
We're finally in the same room.
Yeah.
In the new building and our new studio and things. So yeah, we finally kind of got together after 2.5 years.
I was going to say, yeah, global pandemics, all sorts of things. So you may have seen Tim and I doing things on Zoom and whatnot in the last few years, interviews with photographers, which you can see on the channel. And Tim's been doing loads of videos about tech, about paper. And I think generally, Tim, we want to do a variety of stuff, don't we, on the channel? Yeah. Not just the tech, not just paper, but actually talk about some photography.
Well, yeah, definitely. Talk about photography and obviously going back to print and my ramblings on things as well and paper and such. But yeah, mainly we're here to talk about the print and photography and things. So yeah,
we're here to do that. And so what we said, well, what I said, Tim, I want to talk to you about your work. Because Tim's always here doing the gear stuff and helping people with that. And he's got all those expertise, but actually he's a very fine photographer as well. And so as part of our series of talking to photographers generally, myself, Tim, others that are going to come on in the next weeks and months, I said, well, let's talk to you because he's just put a new book together, a whole big body of work. And there's loads of things we can talk about in terms of the style of the work, the inspiration. But if you can, Tim, and I know this is a bit weird, as me interviewing you, but indulge me, because tell me a little bit about how you came to put together this particular body of work, because you've been studying, haven't you, photography recently as well?
Yeah.
So tell me some of the inspirations and then we'll get actually into the work.
Well, those of you kind of, hopefully this isn't too much of a conflict of interest either, talking about myself, because I'm kind of on the Facebook YouTube channel. It's quite weird. But before I joined Fotospeed, I worked as a photographer, a freelance photographer for 15 years. So I kind of did everything from, I normally say in my talks, everything from babies to power washers and everything in between kind of thing, just to earn money. But my photography, I suppose when I was studying at Falmouth for my master's, which I was very fortunate to do last year or the year before, 2021 anyway, finished. But I kind of went down a route that I was very much in the idea of pushing photography and kind of the research kind of side of things. So I ended up in the virtual world, augmented world, or the metaverse as it's coined now, I suppose, isn't it? And went down that route of how photography could exist in this digital world, because I think we've all accepted the digital's here, and there's a few of us still shooting film. I still love film and it still works absolutely brilliantly, but I think most of us are shooting digital now. For me, probably because of cost, to be honest. When film's £8 a roll or whatever it is at the minute, it is quite a bit. And the rest. So it was how I could project and display. And I think lockdown had a big part of that, because lockdown happened right in the middle of my master's. So I had to kind of think of a way how I could get my work out there without actually getting it out there. Yeah. And I think augmented reality and the projection through smartphones and all those wonderful things that are probably a whole other video and probably not right for today. I went down that route, and that's what I worked on, and I produced some really quite nice little pieces of work. Produced Fade Into Me and Lucid Jewel, which were exhibited and have been in gallery spaces. I have to say, the easiest hanging day I've ever had in galleries, because you just stick a QR code on the wall.
And I should say, if anyone hasn't seen some of this work, Instagram, your Instagram?
Yeah, it's all on my Instagram and also my website as well. Okay. It's timjonesonline.art.
And I would say, actually, if I can jump into, when you and I started working together, okay, we'd known each other sort of on and off through Fotospeed, but never really done anything together. When I started looking at your work, that was the work I was seeing. And for most people, I would say that's you would position that fairly out there. And I mean that in a nice way, but it's in those bounds of pushing what photography means, what photography is. And I'd never really seen any of your sort of classic photography work. So for me, when you showed me the book, I was like, oh, wow, this is amazing. Not because I think that's better or whatever, it's just so different. And it's nice to see someone's work in a couple of different formats, because you then learn a lot more about the photographer. So with these, Like there was a desire, was there, to sort of come back to
I think
classic photography, if you will.
I'd always used photography in my virtual work and used like reference material as the starting point before I did 3D modeling and all this kind of thing. So I was accumulating a lot of pictures. And with Lucid Jewel, my last piece of work that was in augmented reality, that all started as lumen prints as well, with multiple digital negatives and lumen prints. And people don't know what lumen prints are. You take a piece of old photographic paper from the darkroom and basically expose it to light, and over time it will develop itself in UV light. So you have this print, then I'd rephotograph it and do all kinds of weird things to it. But there was always that starting point. But my work did go into that new media, art, conceptual, research-based kind of world. And to be honest, I just wanted to do a nice, normal piece of work, to be honest. And this is what this book and the prints and exhibition and things are all about, really. Taking these pictures and putting them all together. As I said, it's a pretty chunky book, but
Well, let's just talk a little bit about the book, and then we're also going to talk about some of the prints. And I'm also really intrigued to know I kind of know because we've talked about it and I can kind of see from the images, but for the viewers out there, maybe you can explain some of your influences, and I'm sure we can show some of the images on the screen, etc. But what was the kind of main inspirations for this book in terms of style, maybe? Or other people whose work you appreciate, etc.
Well, I'm really anyone who looks at my work hopefully can see I'm really inspired by Japanese photography of the late 60s, early 70s, particularly the Provoke movement. Provoke was a magazine that was released in, I want to say 63, but I'm probably completely wrong with that. And they only lasted 3 issues because it was like a little zine magazine, but highly influential on all photography, I think, personally, anyway. And I think it's highly kind of the photographers that were in that magazine have kind of almost become household names, especially, in Japan they have, but also in the street photography world, things. So people like Araki was in there as well. He's probably a little bit more on the extreme side, but
it created a look, didn't it? An aesthetic. There was an absolute, definite, measurable.
It was the
recognizable,
blurry and grainy and high contrast. That's pretty much how it was defined. And that's probably, I don't mean that belittling way. And it was a movement. They couldn't get into any art and photography exhibitions because it was all very much Cartier-Bresson and all these posh kind of Robert Capa and all kind of Magnum kind of things on the wall. And they wanted to display their work. So it was almost kind of this kind of underground kind of movement, and they couldn't get into photographic exhibitions. So what they did was they bought some plywood and in between the galleries at a photographic festival, they just zip tied boards to the wall and then put pin pictures to them. And they'd go out and they change the pictures every day because they'd go out and shoot at the festival and then the pictures would be there. So quite amazing how they did it. And their first books as well were, they'd have an exhibition and people would say, "Oh, have you got a book of them?" So they had a photocopier in the corner of the room, and they basically just go, "I want that one, that one, and that one in the book," and they'd photocopy them and staple them all together for them.
Well, I mean,
I haven't quite done that.
No, I promise you it's a bit more on top of that. But I mean, when I look at them, there are certain things stylistically which reference that, I would say, but not. It's not a pastiche. It's not a copy of that. I would say inspired by.
Yes,
it's definitely the vibe, isn't it?
Yeah.
So just from a sort of when you're out shooting in that way, if we think about this fairly practically, is there do you have to get yourself in that frame of mind? Are there any things you're doing in terms of how you're seeing things, places you put yourself in to look for those types of images? What's the kind of workflow when you're out and about in the field like that?
I think for me, anyway, probably 80% of photography is getting you in the right position. If you want to do street photography, like I've done a bit in here, which I suppose you could say it's all street, then you've got to put yourself in the street. And I shoot I don't really go out with a purpose. I just have a wander around in the places I am, and I shoot with a very small little camera. I shoot with Ricoh cameras.
Mhm.
I always have shot with the Ricoh GR1 in the film days, and now I'm on the GR digitals, so the 2 and 3X.
isn't it?
I've got the 3X, which is a 40mm lens instead of the 28,
Right.
but I've got the 2, which is the 28. But yeah, and they're just great. They're just so inconspicuous. They're so small, but they've got a big sensor in them as well. They haven't got a full sensor, but they've got the APS-A
Okay, so
kind of sense, quite a big.
bigger than the C.
Yeah.
Yeah. And are you fairly fluid? Because there's a sense of sort of, you get this kind of dynamic sense with a lot of these images, because there isn't physical movement per se, but things are often slightly off kilter, or that there's that implied sense of movement sometimes. So are you fairly? I'm sort of imagine you sort of darting around the streets.
Yeah, I don't really stop. I think I'm still quite wary of people recognizing what I'm doing. So I'm usually shooting from the hip, or I'm moving very quickly if I'm putting my camera up. Turn the screen off, turn all the focus assists and things so it doesn't draw any attention to it. So very much relying on setting quite a wide aperture and just letting it kind of do its thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes I don't get it quite right and it's all overexposed and things, but then you kind of have a quick look when you get around the next corner or something. Some pictures I have found I'm doing a couple of passes though, and I think after the third one, people start to think, "What is he doing?"
What's that guy fiddling with his camera there?
I've got a picture of some chap at a desk through a window, and I did make a couple of passes to get that one. So
before
that was
they called security.
Yeah, so that was a bit contrived, but yeah. So yeah, just walking around. Like I say, I'm not too worried. I don't really crop that much. And if I have, it's for practical purposes for the book.
Right.
So quite a few, if they're like portrait or landscape, and I've had to crop to portrait, possibly just because of the book, because I don't want to lose the picture, but I've kind of just made a new crop of it. But I don't have any problem with that. I'm not too precious about things like that.
No, and maybe as of that style as well, it's you capturing that mood in the area, the space itself, the energy within it. It's not like you're peering over the tripod for 20 minutes, finessing every last millimeter of a still life or something, where then cropping it becomes, you know what I mean?
I can get away
one
with
would
it.
be more precious about that because you've done everything like that, whereas you can still do those crops, like you say, to fit for the book. And I think the book actually is a really serious bit of kit. You could give someone a good clobbering with that, no problem. No, it's really nice to see. And I was really, this is great. Hopefully we can see that on the overhead camera. I was really, really impressed with the book, because you and I both know, if we talk practically for a moment about the types of images and the prints and the way they're shot and the way they're processed and everything else, these could be really quite difficult to reproduce nicely. A, and B, the actual sort of flow of the book's fantastic. So maybe just from a sequencing point of view, can you give us some of your thoughts about how you went about that? Because there's no spaces. It's image. It's full, like the style of the imagery, if you see what I mean. It's got that energy to it.
It's all full bleed. There's no, again, taken from that Japanese kind of style of just full bleed. Pictures on every page, apart from the poem in the middle. But apart from that, there's pretty much picture. It's an assault.
It is, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's part of the vibe.
Yeah, I think that's how it is. I was really happy when it came out. I did work very hard because, well, as we know, you edit your picture on the screen. I use Capture One, to be honest, to edit my personal work. Just find it quite nice, and it works really nicely with the Ricoh files as well and things. So edited, made a short list of about 200 images, starred them, made them all nice as you would in Lightroom as well, exactly the same kind of process. Exported them, and then a lot of people would then, or as I tell people to as well on workshops and things, to print them out and agonize over kind of the sequencing and see what works together and things. With this, I I set up, I loaded InDesign and I set up my page and the bleeds and everything that the printers needed. And then I just started popping pictures in, and I kind of started it, I just see if I've got everything set up correctly, to be honest, and just kind of, I kept going for a couple of nights, and by the end of it, I'd kind of had everything together, then exported as a PDF and kind of flicked through it and had a look at it and thought, I'm just going to change that. I don't quite like that and things.
So you did move a few things there, well, based on where you felt there was a disharmony perhaps between matching images, or
yeah.
And this is a really difficult topic to go into that on the video, isn't it? It's a whole other thing, but
it's more feel, to be honest. You get a feel of it, which you learn. I think it's a skill, isn't it? You kind of develop over time.
Yeah.
But it was just about how pictures work together, which one should be the fireworks, the double page spreads, and which one should be just single pictures opposite each other and leading into one another as well. I think it helps in the style of this kind of photography that you can be quite jarring as well. It doesn't have to quite flow as, say, a lovely kind of pictorial book or something could possibly flow. You can be very jarring because it's just the nature of it. So there's a little bit of leeway you can get away with.
And I would imagine actually if 2 or 3 different of your peers, even experienced in this type of work and this style of approach, they might come with a completely different sequencing, which would work equally well or whatever, So there's no right or wrong per se.
No.
For you, you're the artist. It should be just feeling right for you. But feel is the right thing, isn't it?
And it was another world, to be honest, because I'm very much in that fine art inkjet G-clay world, which is great. I know what I'm doing. I can produce a print and click print between my screen and my monitor, because they're all black and white as well. It's quite important. So I can click print and get what I want out of the printer, basically. But with the book, that's a different kettle of fish. With the CMYK process and things like that. So the black point is really important with these pictures. So a little bit of anxiety when the book arrived in the big box to see. I was assured by the printers that the black point was there, and it is. But you have to mix the inks in a certain way and get that right, and find the little tricks in InDesign to get the file exported as a rich black, apparently. So
that's a whole nother video for a whole other day.
but it worked quite well.
And so on the back of the book as well, I know these are being exhibited.
They are.
I've been part of a group, haven't they?
Yeah, I'm part of a collective that was the Long Exposure Collective, which was about 10 of us, 11 of us, that kind of formed this group during our MA to basically be a little kind of support for us all because of lockdown and things like that, but also to kind of get our work out there in another avenue. And we've just gone from strength to strength. We started off with one exhibition in London, in the Four Corners Gallery in London, and then we kind of took on this project last year to produce a piece of work for the Literacy Festival in Germany, in Darmstadt, near Frankfurt. And because it was part of the Literacy Festival, it had to have a link to literature. So we decided on a Philip Larkin poem, All the Things That I Have Forgotten, I believe that is what it is. And the first line of the poem is, why did I dream of you last night? And my book is called It's Not Me You Dream Of. So it's my response to that. Now, I produced a piece of AR work, which was Lucid Jewel, based around this idea of dream and things, that was exhibited last year in Germany as part of this collective, and then also just down in Wolford Mill in Dorset as well. And I missed one out. It was in London as well, at Four Corners back there. But we are now coming up to the exhibition in Bristol at Centre Space Gallery in Bristol. And that will start on the 17th of March. And this is the work I'm going to be exhibiting here. Bit of a book launch as well, to be honest. So I'm in the midst now. Now the book's done and I've got it back and I'm kind of happy with it. I can put that to one side, and then I can concentrate on the prints, which is what I'm doing at the minute. Because as you can imagine, there are quite a lot of prints I'm printing.
And we've got a good number here.
This is about half, I think. But anyway.
And these examples, Tim, can you tell us a bit about the paper that you've chosen for these? And why?
The paper's kind of a little bit dictated to by the display method, because there's going to be fine art prints of these printed on some really nice high white smooth paper, or NST bright white from Fotospeed, some edition kind of runs of them. But for the exhibition, I wanted to have this kind of, I had this idea of like a mosaic style piece. So I kind of was thinking around that, how I would do that with frames. I looked at frames, but the problem with frames was they stand out from the wall a little bit. So they separate. Very small aesthetic, but it was kind of that little bit of separation and the depth as well, which I didn't want. So I did a little bit of research and I came up with these magnetic framing things. So I've got one here actually. Cool. They're like for signs in pubs and things and menus.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
But the really great thing is they've got a sticky back to them, so really nice and easy to hang. I don't know how they're going to be to get off the wall. I'm not approaching that at the minute.
That's the gallery's problem.
Yeah. But the really great thing is they just, you get your print, pop it in, and just close it down.
That's cool, isn't it?
And the plan is to have them in quite a random pattern, to be honest, just kind of next to each other a little bit, going around. But
it's kind of like an explosion of the inside of the book out.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And that's that feel of the move, of the continual energy sort of in the book onto the wall as well. That's cool. Yeah, let's get those out of the way and then we can have a look at the...
Yeah, so the plan is to kind of just have them, and I'm not really too sure on the kind of layout as yet. They're going to be quite overlapping and things. All I do know is I want them quite close together, so there's a nice black kind of line and barriers going down through them. So very random, quite jaggedy as well. So yeah, I'm the hanging day is the Thursday on the on the 16th of March.
Right.
So I won't know really what it's going to look like until I put it up there. But the beauty is when I've got them all up, if I'm not too happy, I can just undo them and take them and move them around a little bit.
That's true.
Which is quite nice. Which is a little bit of a safety net. But I hope I'm not going to be doing too much of that, to be fair.
And it feels quite organic. And maybe what I would say as a sort of, as we maybe come towards a close, I would say that organic nature of this presentation is met with how you sequence the book, how the book's presented, and also how you shoot, and also how the images look generally. So there's this theme all throughout that links it together, isn't
Leaving
it?
a lot to fate.
No, well,
in a way.
not throttling it, just letting it live.
Yeah.
And that's how you are in the field. That's how you are with the presentation of it. And so if it was done differently at any point of that, it would jar the whole, it wouldn't sit right with the rest of it. So I think it completely makes sense. And I really, really love the book, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Which is here, and that will be hopefully available soon.
Yes, it will be
on your website.
Yes,
Tim?
on the 17th. So I'm kind of tying it all in with the exhibition and things on my website. There's going to be a link, and you can buy it on there.
Cool. And if anyone's in the UK, they could get to the exhibition down in Bristol.
Yes, Centre Space Gallery from the 17th to the 20th of March.
Cool.
So, but yeah, it's been really great. And Matte Ultra, I think, is a fabulous paper that we don't really talk about enough, because we normally talk about the fine art type of papers. However, Matte Ultra it's archival, really. It's not 300 gram, which is why I kind of picked it for this, because I needed a really nice paper that would hold the black point, but also would be thin enough to go in these frames and not kind of cause any problems. And Matte Ultra just fitted that really nicely because it's Artshaw approved. So it's by the Fine Art Trade Guild. It's archival paper. It's pH neutral. Got a lovely light fastness. And it's got that high white base, so the blacks and the whites just really pop off the page. And it's really, really nice. And also it's quite durable as well, because sometimes with these cotton-based papers, with the blacks, you can get little marks and things.
Yeah.
And I haven't got too many as yet. So yeah.
But you can throw quite a lot at Matte Ultra, can't you? And
yeah, definitely.
And it's pretty affordable. I would say as well, which makes it really
I think we bill it as
attractive.
our most cost-effective paper.
really cost effective. There we go.
I think
Affordable
yeah.
and cost effective. Yeah.
For 50 sheets, it's £20 or something. It's
Which is amazing.
crazy.
Really.
But and it's fabulous paper to print on. Not saying the fine art papers aren't great.
No.
But
I think the key to it though, Tim, is that the matching the right work with the right paper is part of the skill, isn't it? And that's why we try and do some of these videos to show you different examples of things on different paper. But you have to get that experience by trying it yourself, trying the sample packs, putting a few images on them, and then understanding, okay, this type of work, because of the nature of it, because of the black point, because of the texture of the work, because of whatever it is, might suit these types of papers. And that's just experience, isn't it, of trying a few different things.
It's also the feel as well. Because of the type of work I'm doing, it's that ziny kind of feel to it, but you want something a little bit thicker, so it kind of goes into that fine art kind of photography world. But Matte Ultra does have that feel.
Cool. Well, Tim, I hope you've enjoyed talking about your work. I've enjoyed talking about it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thank you for having you at Fotospeed on the Fotospeed.
Yes,
but
definitely.
hopefully everyone out there, you've enjoyed learning more about Tim and his work too, because obviously you'll see him on the videos. There's all the technical knowledge there from the printing point of view, but he's also a very fine photographer. And I think it's really nice for us to show different types of work, different people's work, and get their inspiration, because photography
definitely.
It's a broad church.
Yeah.
And there's space for all manner of work. And personally, I just get excited when I see someone who's really thought carefully about their work, whether their motivations, how they present it, etc.
No, definitely. I think it's not just about pressing that print button, it's about everything that goes into it. And I think the print is the final output and can add so much to a piece of work, but it's everything that goes before it, I think. And we don't want to neglect that.
No, exactly.
That's why we're here.
Good. Well, thank you for watching, everyone. If you haven't already, do get subscribed. I'm sure most of you are, especially if you've made it this far to the end of the video. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to us talking photography. But we shall be back very soon with more from Tim and maybe a little bit of me every now and then to talk to you about all things Fotospeed and all things printing. So thank you for watching and goodbye.
Yeah, bye-bye.